Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Midday Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, we begin by taking a look here at the beginning of the month of October in terms of our temperature anomalies, and it is very clear how the flow pattern has been established at the beginning of this month, with quite a lot of cold weather tucked away here in the western, north central, and even western Canada regions across North America. And the big question that I want to continue answering this week is, are we going to actually see a bit of a pattern change as we move here into the end of October and into the beginning of November? Because we have been featuring these deeper troughs that keep sweeping through like this, knocking temperatures back, bringing in a lot of snow, even at lower, especially at lower elevations, and some bitterly cold air that at times has really impacted our harvest efforts, especially in the Northwest, with onions, potatoes, and so much more that we grow up here, with untimely rains in September and early October, and now some bitterly cold temperatures that have come through and brought a very early freeze for the area. So the question is, are we going to be changing this? In the near term, the answer to that is no. In other words, over the next 5 to 7 days, we're continuing to see this parade of storms coming off of the Pacific. So this is just a look at the last 24 hours or so of our infrared satellite imagery going across the North Pacific Ocean. And we can see that the jet stream is really screaming in through this area. And on the northern side, we're curling up a few of these big low pressure systems that you can see moving across here across the northern part of the Pacific Ocean. When we just take a look at the speed of that jet stream, it's incredible to see, one, how zonal it is. In other words, it's moving very much west to east across the North Pacific, and it is very fast. And again, a lot of this was kind of fueled by that super typhoon Hagibis getting into the flow, really increasing our temperature gradient and cranking up the Pacific jet here. But it is clear that it is taking aim right now on the Pacific Northwest, and the question is, how many more days of precipitation are we going to be dealing with? Now, in the near term, what we're looking at here is primarily going to be a threat from very windy conditions, and where it is dry, that is going to increase our potential for fire, but mostly this is just going to be a very windy and a very much of our precipitation, I should say, is going to be coming very much from the west, which means it's going to follow the contour of the mountains, versus when it comes up from the southwest or the northwest. We often get different precipitation patterns, but this is going to be just strong winds straight out of the west. So just real quick, when we look at this map, we do see the high wind advisories in several locations. We do have winter storm watches and warnings. Those are the bluer colors that you see there. Snow elevation levels are lower here in the Cascade Mountains versus over here in the Rockies. We will be seeing snow levels in the Cascades maybe down to 4,200 to 4,500 feet at times over the next couple of days, while maybe up above 5,500 to 6,000 as you get over into parts of Idaho and Montana. Regardless, we've got quite a bit that is on the way. I want to talk about those winds. This is an animation of what we expect to see with the winds later on today. So I told you it's kind of that straight out of the west flow pattern, and you know what that typically brings us. But let's just see what the gusts are going to look like here. So this is an animation from the high resolution NAM model. Does a pretty good job understanding topography, and we can see that with that strong west wind, look at the numbers in there. We got a lot of gusts here, 20 to 30 miles an hour. And with the big push that's coming on here, this is now Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. We could be seeing widespread across southern Washington, Oregon, parts of Northern California, but certainly getting into Nevada and Idaho here. Look at this. This is a lot of wind gusts that are in the 30 to 40 mile an hour range racing through the Pacific Northwest here. So we need to be on the lookout for some stronger winds over the next couple of days while that jet stream still has taken aim on us. Now, in terms of where we're getting with precipitation, let's just take a look at what we got of the last few days here. We can see that as the stronger onshore flows come in, coastal Oregon, Washington, and California have kind of taken the brunt of this, picking up anywhere between 3/4 of an inch, and in some locations picking up 4 to 5 inches, but that is very topographically induced. Some of this rain did get into parts of the Columbia Basin, as you can see there, but we're going to be seeing this whole picture getting quite a bit wetter in the near term before things change. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So I'm going to go straight here to the GFS model. Let's get this right to about midday today on Friday, so right about here. We will be watching the first band of precipitation moving through Idaho and really the Rocky Mountains here in parts of Montana. And then as we progress forward, you can just see that by 7 a.m. tomorrow on Saturday, our next big push of moisture comes in, and it's just going to be filling in this whole gap here with some strong winds and some very wet conditions, but it's mainly going to be focused focused on the windward side of our mountains. I know you're saying, well, of course, Snodgrass, that's how it works here. But I just want to focus on the fact that these winds are very much out of the west. And as a consequence, it makes those north-south running mountain chains more effective at bringing in the precip to those areas. So what we're concerned about here is as we get into the afternoon and evening on Saturday, this is when we could potentially be seeing quite a bit of snowfall at those lower elevations. So you can see here where the GFS model is painting in blue where the snow could be. So Snake River Valley, no, but we're getting right up into the mountains here. We're talking about pretty nasty conditions, winter storm warnings out for once you get above elevations of about 5,500 feet as we get over to Idaho here. So the Blue Mountains picking up on the snow as well. And that's our first big push that's coming through Saturday. This is how things look by the time we get into Sunday morning. So we can see it pushing off to the east. That now becomes a massive low in the middle part of the country that we're going to have to deal with kind of on this side of the Rocky Mountains. But let's see what now reloads here for Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, getting into Monday morning. So we still have, by Monday morning, our next big push. See it there? Now watch what happens after I get you through Tuesday. So Tuesday, now things begin to calm down. You can see that by Wednesday, the storm trajectory seems to be taking aim on British Columbia. And we may be settling into a middle and end of next week that's a bit more calm than what we've just experienced. And I've got you all the way out to Sunday the 27th. And after we get past Tuesday of next week, things seem to be a bit more calm in terms of precipitation. So let's compare week 1 to week 2. I've got on the left the GFS model, on the right the European. When you look here, both models are in very good agreement on the placement and overall the amounts of precipitation. So just take a moment, feel free to pause the video to kind of capture what some of these rainfall amounts are going to look like. Because of that westerly flow, very, easy to see the rain shadow there in the Columbia Basin, but we're still going to get precipitation into there and into interior Oregon as well. So this is our pattern. Good model agreement here, taking a look at who's getting the heavier precipitation. When we switch over to snow, again, remember those snow levels are going to be lower here in the Cascades and a little bit higher over there in the Rockies, changing about 1,000 feet or so. But we have the potential for picking up quite a bit here with that strong westerly flow. We could be seeing at the higher elevations picking up 3 to 4 feet of snow. I'm talking very high elevations here. And then once you get over here into like the Sawtooth, the Payette National Forest, this area, maybe 6 to 8 inches here, but getting up into the northern Rockies, the Bitterroot, this area may be picking up quite a bit more. So very much elevation dependent snowfall in this situation as the strong westerly flow comes in, but we're very used to dealing with that in the Pacific Northwest. Now, since we're talking about precipitation, I want to give you the latest update from the drought monitor. So this was released on Thursday, but the data are valid through Tuesday. And what's important to see here is that we have eroded away that drought at the expense of a very rough harvest. We've at least gotten rid of drought as we've gone into our wet season here. Looking at the change map, that's what's most important. Over the last month, we've seen a 1 to 2 class improvement in this area in terms of our overall drought picture. And as we've been stressing, while this has been good for things like winter wheat, it's been horrible for the harvest of a lot of our crops in the Pacific Northwest. Also, we've seen some improvement down here in parts of Arizona as well in our overall drought picture over the last month. Some graphics that we're going to keep an eye on throughout this upcoming year. This is just, I'm looking at the Northern Sierra at this point. When we watch this graphic, we can see certain years that are wet versus certain years that are dry. We can also see what our normal rate of accumulation of precipitation looks like. We're just down here starting our wet season in California, which is why I'm not focusing too much on precipitation in California right now, because there isn't any really forecast in the near term in the southern 2/3 of the state, I should say. So when we look at this overall, this is just something to be on the lookout for throughout the upcoming weeks and months. And I'll also keep a close eye on this particular figure. Haven't had to show it to you in a while because our reservoir levels have been phenomenally good this dry season. And we're going into our wet season now with good reservoir levels. So we're not having to make up huge deficit in the state of California. That's very important to see and understand. Now, thinking about week 2, we do see that in both of our models, GFS over here on the left, European on the right, both of these are ensemble forecasts. Overall, we see a drier picture being painted. Now, that does not mean no rain at all. It just means drier than average. And I want to talk with you about why. You see, the story's best told by watching this animation. And what we see here is that as we progress into week 2, so just watch this. I'll step you back to Monday, getting into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week, we are in general seeing a pattern that's favoring more ridging here and ridging there, and that's wanting to shove cold air into the eastern half of the United States. So if we get a bit more ridging here over the western United States, that's going to send our jet stream a bit farther to the north. That's going to allow for some warmer air to come in, and it looks as though we're going to finish the month that way and maybe even start November that way as well. So look at what it does to temperatures. While we're still dealing with that storm track over the coming days, we hang on to our cooler bias. All right, but look at what happens by the 6 to 10 day time period. California begins this big warm up first as the cold air spills in this direction as the deeper trough establishes here. And looking out here into the week 2, well, the Northwest even starts to pick up on that warmer pattern as well. So this is a nice break. And the question I wanted to answer at the beginning was, are we going to see a change? We've now seen a full week's worth of model animations. That's 4 times a day that keep consistently producing this pattern at the end, which is giving me more confidence that at the end of October, we're going to see this. So that's what I want you to keep an eye out on. I do want to show you one last thing. Let's look at the first week of November. This was just released yesterday, and what we've got here is from the European Ensemble. We're picking up on precipitation patterns to start November, and it does appear that the model wants to hang on to that pattern overall for the western United States, keeping things a little bit on the drier side. But remember, it's the first week of November, so dry does not mean no precipitation, especially in the Northwest. It just means less than normal. So we need to keep an eye on this throughout all of our upcoming weeks and months as we barrel here into our wet season. Okay, with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here and wish you all have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you again next week. Okay, thank you.